A few days ago, I noticed a Reddit post that caught fire with claims that a mysterious group called the Altitude Group Academy was secretly operating as a child endangerment ring. The post talked about buses, business cards, and big names tied to powerful industries. And I tried to wrap them all into this conspiracy involving this group. But when I started digging, I noticed that the conspiracy didn't hold much water. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers of the Altitude Group Academy mystery, and we're separating what's fact from internet fantasy. The story began on Reddit, a post describing two buses parked on private property. The author claimed they were told belonged to something called Altitude Group Academy, supposedly a school, but they didn't believe it. Within hours, the post morphed into something darker. Users linked the name to everything from government contractors, energy companies, private equity firms, and even it was a perfect recipe for virality, mystery, intrigue, power, and the hints of something that's unspeakable. What is the Altitude Group Academy? Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people. It's your best friend, Kenny. We are back with another spooky, disturbing story. Before we get to today's story, let's make sure that you subscribe, like, and hype this video. Now, this video is going to be talking about some pretty sensitive subjects, and I'm going to be doing what I can to keep this video both appropriate and not triggering, as well as keep it within the guidelines of YouTube. I first discovered this mystery in the Internet Mysteries subreddit by a post from a user named LumpyAd3634. And LumpyAd3634 began to discuss whether other people had seen a thread about this Altitude Group Academy. Do not harass this person. Do not harass anyone mentioned in this video. Do not contact anyone mentioned in this video. Everyone in this video is presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. Leave people alone and be a good person. We're going to discuss later about how the credibility of LumpyAd364 has been called into question. They summarize the story as follows. Basically, a man caught school buses with kids inside on his parents' secluded property at 5 a.m. And when he confronted them, they said they work for a school and charity. He asked for ID and they gave him a creepy business card with the name of a school that doesn't exist. People on Reddit have identified all the people on the card, and it's extremely unsettling. Rahul Mitra is the person who registered the LLC, and a few years ago he ran for political office in Virginia, and he promised to reform child protective laws. He was arrested last year for SA of his son. He has also worked as a financial expert for a company called SunTribe Solar, which according to some sources is a front for a company that's actually owned by another energy company that is owned by the Israeli government. The company that owns SunTribe Solar is called something like Energix, and the woman on the card, whose name is Avivo Shapiro Fry, is the head of the public government relationships at Energix, and is also an employee of the Lieutenant Governor's Office of Virginia, and was the person in charge of fulfilling FOIA requests at the Sheriff's Department near DC. She has also worked for 27 years at a travel agency that specialized in travel to Israel. The other person on the card is the owner of the travel agency, Rosalind Garber. She and her husband were involved in dozens of children's charities in dozens of third world countries all over the world. The last one is the woman or man shown in the video. They lived on for 6 years and own a vaccination company called Vaccines on the Go, which specializes in vaccines for rich executives, according to their website description anyway. There's been lots of talk about a man who owns a website called RobertRed.com. His name is Robert Matheson's, and Rahul Mitra worked as an accountant for his website. Robert Matheson is the descendant of James Buchanan and the founder of the Dow Chemical Company. He wrote a few articles in Forbes magazine bragging about flying around the world with celebrities. His website is one of the creepiest websites of all time and supposedly sells shirts. It offers memberships for $5,000 and seems like the most obvious trafficking website front of all time. The user would then write, I'm literally just scratching the surface with this summary. If you look at my profile and post history, you can find a subreddit that was made to investigate into this. Now, that little blurb at the end sort of shows you a lot, right? And guess what? This user LumpyAd, is a moderator of the subreddit for r/Altitude Group Academy. Turns out that the whole mystery of the Altitude Group Academy started from a Reddit post on r/HelpMeFind. And the post was called, I was given this business card by men I caught trespassing on my parents' property who claim to work for a charity school. Can you please help me find this school? The Reddit post has since been deleted, and the user BlockbusterBoiUni has been banned from Reddit. The original post read as follows. This is kind of a long story, and I apologize, but all this information is important in order to understand the full context of the situation. My parents recently moved to Florida a few years ago, but still own a piece of property in my area I look after for them. One piece of property is a very secluded piece of land that is a long, muddy road that is about 3/4 of a mile long and leads to a small pond. My parents were always paranoid about someone getting hurt on that piece of property because it was a very popular location for kids to dirt bike, and they had a lot of issues with trespassers, poachers, and people dumping trash. They wanted to gate the area off, but were told they weren't allowed to because the road is considered a utility easement. The strange stuff started about 3 months prior to the main incident. The man that owns the adjoining property to my parents had called me and told me that someone had dumped trash and had thrown it down the hillside on the side of the dirt road. About a week later, I drove down with my truck to clean up the trash, and I found that all the trash was thousands of brochures for a vaccination app. They were rubber-banded bundles of brochures, and there must have been thousands of them. There were so many that you couldn't see the bottom of my truck bed when I was finished picking them all up. I tossed them all out and was extremely annoyed. I told my neighbor that if he saw anyone on my property again to call me immediately, and I'd come out and try to catch them dumping trash. Fast forward about 3 months, and I get a call at 5 a.m. from the wife of the adjoining property owner. The neighbor's wife had been returning from work and could see taillights on the dirt road as she passed by, and her husband had rushed out to try and catch them. He said when he pulled up his ATV, there were 2 school buses parked back to back and running. He saw 2 men were outside of the bus, and when they saw him, one immediately walked into the bus and turned the radio up. He said they seemed extremely nervous and kept looking back them further up the trail as if they were looking for someone. The one man told the neighbor that they worked for a children's charity and that they were driving across country and had stopped to sleep and take a break. He told them they were trespassing and asked for identification or some proof that they worked for a charity. They both claimed to not have ID, and so the neighbor told them he's calling the police. One of the men immediately pulled out a business card and handed it to him. The business card was extremely strange and vague and didn't really prove anything. Things somehow escalated into an argument, and the men started getting aggressive. Meanwhile, I live about 10 minutes down the road, so I arrive at this point. I notice a white medical van, like one of those mobile medical vans that does blood work and stuff, was parked in the mailbox pull-off, and the side of the van had some vaccine app written on the side. Vaccines for people on the go, or something very similar. I drove past the medical van and turned onto the road, and apparently they saw my headlights. They immediately tried to get into their buses and leave. I think they thought I was the police. When I pulled in and they saw it wasn't the police, the 2 men didn't come back out of the bus. Instead, a woman came out wearing scrubs and very calmly told me that they worked for a school and they had pulled onto the wrong road by mistake. At that point, I tried to inconspicuously shine my light towards the bus windows to see inside and could see figures moving around through the glare. I got a very horrible feeling and told them they need to leave immediately. And the woman just kept apologizing. Around that time, 2 other men who we previously hadn't seen came walking down from further up the road near the pond. I asked them what they were doing, and they just kind of looked at me, but they didn't understand what I was saying and got on the bus. Finally, one of the original 2 men came out of the bus and very aggressively demanded his business card back. I got another awful feeling and just said something like, I already called the cops. I was openly armed with a gun, which I'm very happy about in hindsight. They finally left shortly after, and the whole situation has freaked me out. I called the police the next day and explained everything, but they seemed completely uninterested. Told us that there wasn't much they could do and to call them if they came back so they could be trespassed. They even refused to even look at the business card. Could someone help me find the school or the people named on the business card and help ease my mind? So this original poster claims early in the morning, someone observed a school bus full of figures. They're saying children now arriving at a secluded property owned by the bus watcher's parents. The individual with the buses said that they were from a school and charity. When challenged, the bus operators provided a business card for a school, and that the original poster on Reddit goes on later to claim doesn't exist. Redditors began working, and you all know how great Redditors are at investigations, right? Redditors allegedly traced the names on the cards and connected them to various high-profile or suspicious entities. The user that seems to be driving this conspiracy, LumpyAd3634, was actually called out on the internet mystery subreddit by a user named Finster Hall, who claims, but you are the original poster. You replied to me in the original post, immediately deleted it, and then replied as original OP, BlockbusterBoiUni. The reply is still in my inbox. It gets stranger because in the subreddit Altitude Group Academy, LumpyAd3634 would post threads and then would reply to his threads pretending to be a different person, as if he forgot to log out or switch accounts. In a thread posted by LumpyAd3634, where he states one of the locations on the card, Elkton, is in Maryland, I think. I found a New York Times article from 1971 that's about the election of a new sheriff in Elkton and him being a member of the DuPont family. LumpyAd3634 would reply, bro, WTF, that's way too random of a location for that to be a coincidence. Do you have a link? LumpyAd3634 also appears on the subreddit to be providing updates from the original poster, BlockbusterBoiUni, even though it appears that both LumpyAd3634 and BlockbusterUni are the same person. Here's a thread posted by LumpyAd3634 called New Update from OP After 24 Hours of Silence. As you can see, it's a screenshot from a Proton Mail account called BlockbusterBoiUni and says, hello, Lumpy. I'm sorry for the late response. I agree with you about the items shown in the last batch of pictures from the property. My girlfriend also agrees that the tubing does in fact appear to be tubing for IVs. Also, the second private investigator's name was actually redacted. You can see our interaction with the PI via my Ring camera video that's in my last email. My family has been under a great deal of stress and pressure, and it's taken its toll on our mental health. I was visited by a private investigator again who talked to me and redacted and attempted to show us the light and educate us about our situation. I'm afraid I'm going to have to take a step back from the whole situation and focus on my responsibility as a father to keep my child safe. A person named Rahul Mitra is said to have registered the LLC tied to the card. He reportedly ran for political office in Virginia and was arrested for essay of a child. A company called SunTribe Solar is alleged to be a front with ties to an Israeli government-owned energy firm. The same person, Mitra, reportedly worked as a financial expert for SunTribe Solar. Another person named Aviva Shapiro-Fry is listed as head of public government relations at the Israeli-linked firm and previously worked for a travel agency specializing in Israel trips. A travel agency owner named Rosalind Garber and her husband are alleged to have run children's charities in many third world countries. Another person is said to have lived on ranch for 6 years and owns a vaccination company called Vaccines on the Go. The original poster suggests this ties into the alleged child endangerment scenario. Elsewhere in the thread, the original poster refers to a website, robertred.com, which is owned by Robert Matheson, supposedly descendant of former U.S. President James Buchanan and founder of Dow Chemical, which appears to be creepy and is alleged to offer $5,000 memberships and also be a Again, there's no evidence of that, like there's no evidence of most of the things here. As you look at the subreddit, r/altitude group academy, the central claims of the subreddit involve a Jody Stewart, who's connected to ranch and a vaccine company, a link to the DuPont family, and the existence of a clandestine brother company. And these are all completely unsubstantiated with available evidence. There's no evidence that supports any of these claims. In fact, the real-world entity at the heart of the speculation, Altitude Academies, is located out of Port St. Lucie, Florida, and is a subsidiary of a publicly traded company, Altitude International Holdings, which has your typical transparent corporate filings and a well-documented history in athletic trading for young people. Now, this subreddit is the central repository for a series of claims that attempt to frame this organization as the nexus for a wide-ranging conspiracy. The community's investigation is built on a bunch of posts that establish various parallel threads and inquiries, and these threads are connected here. There's a whole bunch of like you know how Reddit works. There's a whole bunch of threads. So there's no clear, coherent investigation here of various paths that various users have gone down, right? So there's a small collection of these foundational posts that establish several parallel threads of people investigating, right? And so all of these threads are sort of woven together into this tapestry of suspicion with a whole bunch of unverified assertions. According to the subreddit, Altitude Group Academy is a nebulous entity. It's more than it appears to be. It's a front for activities that are not publicly disclosed. There appears to be 3 key posts that represent this community's theory that there's something shady going on with Altitude Group Academy. Now, there isn't like a clear initial piece of wrongdoing outside of these buses, the story about these buses parked trespassing on this path. There's just this feeling of suspicion that exists, and the investigation appears to be an effort to find evidence to justify this suspicion. The central claim of the mystery is again posted by this user, LumpyAd3634. This user makes the statement, the Jody Stewart who lived and the Jody Stewart who owns the vaccine company are 100% the same Jody. And this takes what's an investigation into a shady situation into a potential connection with one of the most infamous criminals of the 21st century. By even just mentioning the name, narrative taps into a pre-existing framework of public suspicion involving corruption of the elites, trafficking, and networks of power. The sole piece of evidence offered in the subreddit to support this 100% certain claim is the assertion that the individuals both use an identical email address. Of course, this email address is not provided, documented, or referenced in any verifiable way, and this sets a precedent for the subreddit, making extraordinary claims presented with absolute certainty but are not supported by evidence, or supported by evidence that is either absent or not verifiable. It really seems like the whole purpose of this is to connect this to, and for that to serve as the primary engine of the conspiracy, giving it the gravity of and sinister implication that otherwise this story wouldn't have. Without this link to, nobody cares about this story. LumpyAd3634 is also responsible for a second major thread, and this one is connecting the mystery to old money and dynasties of American power. The post suggests that a location mentioned on a card, again, this card is not verified, it's a card, no one knows whether this card is legit or anything like that. It claims that the location of Elkton is likely Elkton, Maryland. This place is then linked somehow to the DuPont family, one of America's most prominent industrial dynasties. The evidence for this connection is a 1971 New York Times article concerning the election of a new sheriff in Elkton who was a member of the DuPont family. This 50-something-year-old political story is linked through another unsubstantiated personal connection. Robert Matheson's mother bragged about being friends with the DuPonts. The identity of this character, Robert Matheson, and his connection to the Altitude Group Academy are never properly established. And so there's this link, this tenuous chain of association. This business card or what have you points to Elkton. A 1971 article links Elkton to the DuPonts. The DuPonts are somehow linked to an individual named Robert Matheson via his mother's alleged bragging. This multi-layered, hearsay-based connection is characteristic of conspiracies, conspiratorial thinking, where various things are linked through speculative leaps of logic rather than direct evidence. Like connection, this thread is giving the mystery a larger story of elite power and influence, suggesting that the Academy is tied into long-standing powerful networks without any evidence. Another post from user BitterWarning418 broadens the scope of the conspiracy with a speculative title. Pretty sure this is a brother company of some sort. Of course, no evidence is offered to support this belief. The post history of the user reveals only generic Reddit activity, offering no basis to assess whether this person has any credibility whatsoever. The company that they alleged is a brother company is the Altitude Group Core Home Security LLC. In that thread, LumpyAd3634 says, it 100% is. Someone posted a photo of an information page about the company, and the person listed as manager of the company is Jody Stewart. You can find it in the subreddit post history. Now, it's unclear whether LumpyAd3634 and BitterWarning418 are different people. The post, of course, doesn't have any substance. It links some document that was filed in federal court involving this Altitude Group, and there's no explanation other than LumpyAd3634's explanation of how these groups are related. But what this post is doing is it's attempting to show that this Altitude Group Academy is not just some standalone company, but is just one of this larger hidden corporate structure. And this is another conspiracy trope. It serves functions. First, it makes the conspiracy seem larger and more powerful than it otherwise might be or might appear to be. And the second makes the theory unfalsifiable. Any lack of evidence found about visible entities can be explained away by suggesting the real activity is happening in an undiscovered brother companies. The post is expanding the boundaries of the mystery to be limitless, allowing endless speculation about a web of interconnected shell corporations and hidden partnerships. These three pillars, the DuPont connection and the hidden corporate network, form the entire narrative framework of this Altitude Group mystery. If you analyze the posts in this subreddit, a clear picture emerges that stands in stark contrast to the speculation in this subreddit. The truth here is this is a product of misinterpretation, fueled by the generic nature of the central brand name Altitude Group Academy, and a failure to find any actual evidence. For example, calling this brother company a brother company, it appears to be the generic nature of the word altitude. And there are a lot of different entities involving the term altitude. The rest of the evidence appears to be filled in with various claims, whether the evidence is just trust me, bro. And the fact that altitude is such a common keyword makes it easy for an investigator to find apparent connections if they want to see them, when in reality, this is just instances of a shared common word. Now, there is an Altitude Academies. And Altitude Academies is a high-performance sports and academic institution located in Port St. Lucie, Florida. It's established in 2012, and the institution is a legitimate private school that combines rigorous academics with elite training in sports like tennis, golf, soccer, and volleyball. The academy is located at Sandpiper Bay Resort and provides a campus environment for its student athletes. It's not a shadowy organization. It operates with a high degree of transparency due to its corporate structure and the fact that it's a school. The academy is owned by Sports Tuition Property and Altitude International Holdings, a publicly traded company listed under the stock ticker ALTD. As a public company, it's subject to regulatory insight and public disclosure requirements. Its corporate filings with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission are publicly accessible documents detailing its business operations and financial agreements. The exclusive claim regarding a Jody Stewart linked to both vaccine company is the most serious allegation made by the subreddit in these posts, and it's also completely baseless. Now, interestingly, this sort of thread, this structure, had been used before in a different viral conspiracy. The viral conspiracy was a debunked theory that linked Bill Gates, George Soros, and Dr. Anthony Fauci to the vaccine manufacturer Moderna. The theory involved claiming that was a primary stockholder in Moderna, which was completely fabricated. So this Jody Stewart connection with appears to be a variation on this false conspiracy theory. Another part of the mystery involves the DuPont family. The family is a real, historically significant American dynasty with deep roots in Delaware and the surrounding mid-Atlantic region, including Maryland. Their history is in the chemical and gunpowder industries, and it's well documented, as well as their extensive wealth and philanthropic activity. But the connection between the DuPont family and the Altitude Academies is entirely speculative and unsupported by any evidence. We talked about this, a New York Times article about the DuPont family member being an elected sheriff at Elkton, Maryland, is a very tenuous grasp. There is a massive disparity between the narrative constructed by r/Altitude Group Academy and the verifiable facts that are established through public records. And in fact, looking at this with a critical eye makes the entire thing seem completely baseless. The Altitude Group Academy Academy mystery is a textbook example about how modern digital conspiracies are formed. The process involves motivated reasoning, where a pre-existing suspicion or conclusion drives the search for data points that can be arranged to support it. This is a form of confirmation bias, where information that confirms the belief is accepted and contradictory information is always ignored. And the story is woven together using classic conspiratorial tropes that act as narrative shortcuts. By invoking the name the DuPont family, the creators of the mystery tap into a pre-packaged narratives of elite corruption and entrenched power. These figures come with their own built-in sense of menace and intrigue, saving the theorists the trouble of having to establish any actual wrongdoing on behalf of the Academy. Just mentioning with somebody immediately implies wrongdoing. Based on the evidence so far, the Altitude Group mystery appears to be a work of digital fiction. It's a speculative narrative projected onto legitimate, transparent, and ultimately unrelated businesses. And the core claims of the mystery are either completely unsubstantiated, contradicted by public records, or based on logical fallacies and flawed research. It's not clear what the purpose of this subreddit is or what the purpose of this theory is. Is it an alternate reality game, or is it something more sinister? Someone trying to get attention? It appears that Lumpyad3634 and BlockbusterBoiUni appear to be the same person. That in itself suggests the fact that this is not a credible individual pushing this theory. I suppose we'll have to stay tuned to see if this actually takes off and what eventually happens. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you like and share and hype this video. Follow me on Blue Sky, Twitter, and TikTok. My username is The Spooky Lawyer. If there's a spooky or disturbing story you'd like me to cover, leave a comment and tell me about it. Or if you're feeling shy, send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a link in the description of this video and in my account bio to buy me a coffee, so you can buy me a coffee, or you can become a member of this channel for the $1.99 tier. You can get access to exclusive content, including exclusive videos, as well as access to my videos before they go public. I appreciate you considering this. You also support me by continuing to like, share, and watch my videos. And I do appreciate that you watch my videos. And please stay spooky.